Hey everyone, welcome to Ian and Friends Tour de Suisse edition. I am FloBikes Senior Editor Ian Dille.
And I am Michael Sheehan, Ian's friend. Today, Stage 8, the final sprint day, penultimate day of the Tour de Suisse, and a bit of a French surprise.
Yeah, the pure sprinters finally got their chance, and they weren't letting much leash on this breakaway early on. I mean, when I tuned in, they was at like a minute and 20 seconds or so. The sprinters were not going to let any breakaway upset the apple cart today.
Yeah, but you don't really go into breakaway on a stage like today and expect to win.
Why do you go in breakaway on a day like today? I mean, who draws the short straw?
Honestly, it's beyond me.
Because it looks really hard. I mean, they're going like 50K an hour up there.
Yeah, who goes in a breakaway on a sprint stage? I've never done that. But we got to see Nate Brown. Nate Brown got TV time again, so it was a win for us.
Yes, he looked fabulous as usual.
Yes.
And what was interesting about the breakaway, and this is something we'll probably see a lot of at the Tour de France, is the battle for the most aggressive rider prize at the end, when the breakaway is coming back. This was one of the more tenacious battles. I mean, they were going, once the gap came under 30 seconds, it was just attacks all over the place from the breakaway.
It was awful. I like Nate's strategy. Like, they attacked once, and he's like, this is dumb. I'm going home. And yeah, the rest of them, Eddie Dunbar.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, young rider, Aqua Blue Sport. He is really the one rider who should be in that breakaway. Aqua Blue, they're doing a fantastic job. Pro Continental team, getting in every single breakaway of the Tour. He was very, very determined to be the last rider standing. He's a new signing on Aqua Blue, just finished up at Action, Higgins-Berman. But they were not going down without a fight, and that looked miserable.
Yeah, he put on quite a show at the end there, and then the sprint trains took over, did their job. All the sprinter teams were contributing to keeping the breakaway in check today. We saw Lotto, Bora, who else? FDJ was up there, obviously Quick Step. It was a real collective effort. And then around 4K to go, FDJ just comes to the front and really takes control of this race.
I was amazed by what FDJ did. I saw them come to the front at 4K to go, and I'm like, this is way too early. They're riding a check that they can't cash right now. They're not really, we haven't seen too many sprints from them this year, honestly, and they just asserted themselves from a long way out, and nobody really came around them. We saw Marcus Berghardt and Daniel Oss. They put in a really big dig to set up Sagan, but Sagan didn't really follow them, so then it just fell back on FDJ. They did a fantastic lead out, and their man Arnaud Démare, he saw the work that they put in, and really, if you're a sprinter and your team does that much work for you, you got to win, and he did.
And he just played it perfectly, too. I mean, when Bora came around to the front, it got a little messy. He got pinched. He could have easily been pulled off the back of his train, but they all stayed together. I think it was 4 riders right on the back of the Bora train. When the Bora train flamed out, they were still together. Quick Step did their sort of trademark, in the last 1K, 800 meters from the line, came blazing up the side with Gaviria. But it worked out perfectly because by the time Quick Step got to the front, FDJ's last man had popped up, and Démare just went right onto the back of Gaviria's wheel. Ended up it was a drag race to the finish from 200 meters to go, and he was the faster guy.
Yeah, pretty clear in a way. It was a clean sprint between Arnaud Démare and Fernando Gaviria. Démare was just plain and away the fastest rider. I think that he really benefited, though, from just like a lot of fighting between Christophe and Sagan in the last 5K. Those two riders, they were both ultimately freelancing it. Sagan, very, very well known in the peloton. He just bounces around, and like seemingly, if you're just sort of trying to watch him, he just teleports throughout like the top 15 wheels in the last 5K. Christophe was giving the world champion pretty much no respect, though, and really when Quick Step came around with about a K to go within the last K, Sagan seemed like he was waiting for it, slotted right over. And Christophe basically just pushed Sagan off of the Quick Step train, put Sagan into the wind, and that spelled the doom for Sagan's sprint. He was in the wind, no way he was going to come back on terms. And that fighting between Christophe and Sagan really gave Démare just a free ride onto the Quick Step train.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Christophe and Sagan really going at it. Sagan was definitely none too happy after the race today. I mean, he's not one of these sprinters that kind of huffs and puffs after a race, but you could tell the look on his face. He wasn't very pleased with Christophe's antics, and I think it sort of shows how desperate Christophe is for a result, for a stage win ahead of the Tour. I mean, I don't think he would have made those types of moves and, potentially infuriated the world champion if he wasn't really trying to, needed a stage win. So it'll be interesting. I mean, another loser on the day was Andre Greipel. I mean, Richie Porte almost beat Andre Greipel. Greipel's back in 10th place and Porte finished 12th. So it's not looking great for the German gorilla.
Yeah, that's not the confidence boost that Greipel wanted going into the Tour. Another rider who just wasn't there, who I was kind of disappointed by, was Michael Matthews. He finished 10th, I think, and he is not quite the freelancer that Sagan and Christophe are, and he didn't really have the lead-out train going into it. That's something the Sunweb is really going to have to talk about going into the Tour de France. We don't know if maybe Dumoulin's going to do the Tour. There's speculation about that. If they're going to be doing a split roster between Dumoulin for GC and Matthews for sprints, they're going to have a few guys who can organize around Matthews and try to shepherd him to the line.
Yeah, let's talk about tomorrow's stage, a big TT, 34 kilometers. It's in the exact same valley as the race today. Relatively flat, a little bit technical, but it's a bit of a preview for the time trial that we're going to see in stage 20 of the Tour de France. Roughly the same length. We're all expecting Richie Porte to seal the deal tomorrow. There's not really a GC rider that has the ability to time trial within reach of him. I was going to point out one rider that will be interesting to watch is Fuglsang. Fuglsang is only a minute 28 seconds down on Richie Porte. There's no way he takes that back tomorrow. But that loss in time came during the team time trial where Astana totally tanked. They lost 75 seconds in stage 1. So he's actually really close to Richie Porte. So it'll be an interesting test tomorrow to see where he is at in his time trial ability and how close he can be to the win.
And really just getting to see these GC guys just race against the clock, as they say, the race of truth. It's going to be a really, really telling just glimpse into where these riders' forms are going into the Tour. The battle I'm excited about to see finish off tomorrow is the young rider competition.
Yeah.
Enric Mas, he looks like he is probably going to take that competition. It's been a really, really tight battle, though, and the time trial is really going to decide it.
Yeah, Enric Mas has 20 seconds on Sam Omen from Sunweb. I'm not too familiar with either of these riders, kind of where they're at in their time trialing ability. They're both pretty young. They probably have a long way to develop, but it's going to point to kind of where they are in their progression as GC riders overall. And if Omen can overcome Moss, or if Moss does prove himself in this time trial tomorrow as a future GC rider, that sort of gives Quick-Step another card. They don't have a lot of GC talent on their team, so if they can hang on to him, they could be a team for the classics and the stage races.
Yeah, all will be decided tomorrow.
Yep. Tune in. Last stage of the Tour de Suisse. We'll see you then.
Thanks for joining.